Welcome to episode 3 of Collaborwalkie, where we have conversations about collaboration. Today's conversation is going to be a little one-sided. It's going to be more of a webinar. It's going to be me talking about humane management, the system of humane management, and the 7 elements of visual management or of systems. And then we are going to do a lean coffee. And the lean coffee should take most of the hour. So I'm going to jump right in and share my screen. So at Modus Institute and Modus Cooperandi, when we approach any project, there's Agile and there's Lean and there's all these things that we've learned over the years, but there has always been something missing. And so we've talked about this before, but at Modus, we say that individuals work in teams to provide value. And what we find is that Agile tends to focus a lot on the team. Lean tends to focus a lot on the value. Both of them give kind of lip service to the individuals, but that system is a whole system. Individuals in teams providing value, that is a whole professional system. And in order to have that, we need people to be able to communicate, have the information that they need when they need it. We need them to be able to form relationships both within the team, with other teams, with the customers, and understand how those relationships are made healthy, because that's how we understand what quality is and deliver product on time, on budget, and in good form, because we actually know what it is that people want. And that, those two things added together, create an atmosphere of respect. When we have these 3 things, we're able to achieve states of flow, either psychological flow, material flow, one-piece flow, whatever kind of flow we're talking about. Those require actual functioning human beings on the other side of that equation. And those people are usually mistreated. They have too much work to do. They're not listened to. They can't make decisions. They don't get the information they need when they want to. And then we come in as coaches and stuff and we say, hey, everybody, do continuous improvement. And they're like, screw you, buddy. And they're that way because they fundamentally don't have what they need to get their work done. And so we'll build these Kanbans, or we'll build these visual controls, or we'll set up scrum boards or whatever, and we think that that's enough. But it's never enough. It just shows a couple of things that people need and not what they actually, the bulk of what they actually need to be good professionals. And that's this thing. So most Kanban in the world right now show you state and triggers. And they show a whole lot of state and very few triggers. So when we approach work, we get stuff to do. We do the stuff is completed. Then we go do more stuff. We don't learn. We don't question what we just did. I know Agile people think they do retrospectives. I know that Lean people think that they're doing Kaizen, but knowledge work is different. It needs more. It needs more than retrospectives. It needs more than Kaizen events. It needs an operating system that really respects the human beings in that system. So those people do need to know state. They need to know what's going on and who's doing it. They need to know the triggers. So when something happens, what beneficial behavior does seeing that thing happen cause, right? So if you see that your stuff is being completed, completed of quality, but the client doesn't seem satisfied with it, that should be a trigger to have a conversation with the customer and to say, hey, are you really getting what you really want? Because we think we're providing it, and something seems to be off here. So we are little bundles of cognitive biases, and they make us, for better or for worse, make decisions very rapidly. They usually serve us very well, But often they'll drive us off onto a path where we'll keep doing the wrong thing. We'll get stuck in status quo bias or sunk cost fallacy, where we keep doing the same bad thing over and over again. And it's because we haven't set up a system with a trigger that says, hey, right now the state information is telling me that you should take a different path. Okay. So up here, we have the tactical kind of wing of this. This is tactics. And this is what most of our visual controls are. They don't include this stuff down here. So we'll move down to the strategic. Put over here first, because we're going to talk about direction first. So direction is where you're coming from. It's kind of where you're coming from and the vision of where you're going. So these are your plans. These are your backlogs. These are, the group sitting down and saying this is our roadmap and this is what we think is going to happen to us. Narrative is what's happened or is happening to you. So what decisions have you made? What discoveries have you had? What complexity have you found and solved? What change did you make during this that made your current state different than your projected state? This is all the strategic. Do we know what we're going to do? And in the end, do we know what we did and how that then informs what we're going to do? And then lastly, we have kind of this culture blob, these three things down here. The first part of culture blob is culture. So we tend to think of culture as a soft skill, as something that just kind of happens because we go bowling or because we get along well, or we bring pizzas to the office every so often. But culture isn't that. Culture is, how does your team made up of individuals know that they are providing value? How do you know that the new hires that you've made have what they need to make good decisions? How do you know that your colleagues are overloaded or stressed out or needing something from you? How do you support the professionalism of the rest of the team, right? So we'll bleed over into this because this is a system. None of these states lives alone. They can be identified, but this is a system. This stuff has to happen together. So if you have a Kanban and you're putting it out, or you're trying to get some Scrum team off the ground and you're wondering why they're resistant, it's because they're human beings and you're providing them with an incomplete system, and they don't have the tools to say, gosh, looks like you're giving me an incomplete system. I believe that we should do something about that. They don't have those tools. They have the tools to tell you to pound sand. So we have to recognize that when we build our culture here, that we're building this culture of continuous improvement. We're building a culture of professionals. Okay. So I don't want to hear anything more about like software craftspeople and stuff. I would like software professionals. I would like software professionals that do not crash planes into the ground. Okay. So I would like us to treat our work seriously. So that doesn't mean that it has to be boring or suck or not even be creative, because Herbie Hancock is a professional. He is unbelievably creative, and that dude practices every day. He's in his 80s. He practices every day. He's the best piano player in all of human history. He practices every day because he has his own culture of professionalism. So we can build systems easily that do all these things. And so in the end, identity. So we've just come off of 4 years of someone desperately trying to change the conversation of identity to us and them. Okay. That doesn't have to be identity. That is the easiest, least common denominator conversation about what identity is. But what identity for a group is why do we exist? What is it that we are doing for other people that allows their lives to be better and us to make money? And how do we make sure that we satisfy both of those missions, that we don't starve to death and that we help other people in the process? So when Deming used to start his classes, he used to say that we are here to learn, to have fun, and to make a better world. He was actively setting out to change capital C culture, right? Okay, so we have our tactical wing, we have our strategic wing, we have our narrative wing. Any Kanban you set up in the future should be doing these things. So back here, we talked about these lenses allowing us to say, you know, whenever we approach a system, how is this system supporting people's communications? How is it supporting relationships? How does it help or hinder respect? But this part down here, PDSA, for some reason, we just think that we're going to give people a Kanban, or we're going to give people an A3, or we're going to give people a Scrum Master, and suddenly they're going to engage in continuous improvement. Well, they won't, because human beings don't naturally engage in continuous improvement ever. Never. So there's got to be a system that rewards that behavior, that triggers that behavior. So we had PDSA in the beginning. Here's our planning over here. Our doing is kind of up here. Our studying is here, and our adjusting is made possible down here. So this missing bit is the missing link in why we haven't been able to get compelling cultures of continuous improvement before. So I want that to sink in, because people think that this is literally, that this is just bowling. This isn't a bowling night. This is being able to engage the people at work about work in a way that respects them and respects the work, because people go to work to work. So really quickly, I'm going to take a quick break and note that after we're done with this, we're going to do a lean coffee. Tony Ann, I think, posted the link for the lean coffee, and she will be leading that. But when we get in there, that's when we're going to dive deep into questions. So we want to get out of the talking gym mode as quickly as possible. So what would this look like if we actually did this? So I'll give you a theoretical, and then I'll give you a real world. So this is the theoretical board. This is a visual culture actually happening. So we have our deep backlog. We have our upcoming backlog. We have the stuff that we're just about to do. We have things going through design and build, and then two types of done. A very simple board, but it lets you do a couple of things. So these groups said that they wanted, in their conversations about culture, they wanted to plan more together. They wanted to be more collaborative planning. They wanted to onboard people more effectively. So they wanted to pair the people who were coming on to the team. They wanted to value their designer, who previously had been completely ignored. And they want to do real-time retrospectives. So the first thing they did was they said, okay, we'll set up a board where we can actually see our planning. And then when we get to this grooming thing, we have two things. We have the groomed stuff up here. We have the stuff that's being groomed down here. And so now what happens is, let's just say we move this other ticket into here as well, move this ticket in. I don't have any interest in these two tickets, but I do have an interest in this ticket. So when we're actually grooming this, I will volunteer my time as an individual contributor to help groom this ticket. So everyone doesn't have to groom everything, but the group as a whole knows that there's stuff that they're interested in and that they want to work on it, right? So they're now planning collaboratively, but they're not turning that into some painful, every 2 weeks we get together and do a full day of planning and everybody's bored off their butts thing. So we get in and we plan what we want to plan. We help where we want to help. And yes, you can draft some people if you want to, but there you go. So onboard pairing, let's say that this one is done by our person from Iceland. And so we know that she's new. And so that's going to be a pairing task. So on the board itself, we're showing what is being done by the new people and subsequently being shared. Also over here for real-time retrospectives, they don't want to talk about everything that goes wrong. They still want to have the retrospective-y retrospectives, but let's just say that this comes up and it's really, really bad. They will stop the line. Just like at Toyota, they'll stop the team and they will do this. So they have these cultural elements. The cultural elements become part of the board. So this looks big and complicated because human relationships are big and complicated. The visualization can still be simple, right? So Turner Construction, this is a barely visible and highly redacted board that was in their architectural estimate group. And that group had two young women in it that were change agents named Amanda and Savannah. And Amanda and Savannah one day said, you know what, we need a board. So they put up a board in this room and the board had Post-it notes and it was very simple. It was just, it wasn't ready doing done, but it was still fairly simple. And the team came in and they basically said, your board sucks. We'll come in here and look at it because we don't want to tell you no, but we're not going to really participate. And so then what would happen is like people came in, they'd lean against the wall, and then not for the meeting, for other meetings, because it was an open conference room, and they'd walk away with the Post-it notes. Then they said, okay, well, we'll use dry erase markers. Then they lean against the wall and they'd erase the dry erase markers. So this is all actually with wet erase markers. And then a couple of conversations would happen, but people would be like, this board still doesn't work for us because my project is unique and different. And to Amanda and Savannah's credit, they said, okay, well, how is your project different? And they said, well, ours involves these things. And they say, okay, well, now you've got different sections inside your column. So all of these projects actually have their own swim lane and largely different workflows because they're relating to the work, not to somebody else's definition of the work. And when you relate your visualization to the work that's really happening, that's respect. And when people are respected, they're like, oh, that's kind of cool. I haven't felt that at work before. And so then they will go off and they will say, okay, well, I'm going to change the board a little bit more, a little bit more. And so now you'll see that this board for like Kanban purists is a nightmare. It has a bunch of different columns. Things don't flow. There's check marks in it. There's notes written all over the place that you can barely see. And then there's actual note columns over here for constraints, comments, and then a parking lot for things to talk about in the future. And so these comments are things that need to be talked about either in that huddle or in like a few subsequent huddles. And the team evolved into not just using the board, but into continuously improving the board. So, you know, I'm reasonably sure that if I went back and looked at it today, it would look entirely different. So this board gives not just the individuals in each group the information they need, it gives the entire team the information they need, which allowed them to build relationships that they never had before because they were all siloed in their own little projects. Let me know if this doesn't sound familiar to you. They felt disrespected because they didn't ever get the information they needed and no one would ever help them. But once this board went up, they could see very quickly how and when they could help each other. And here's the funny thing. Before they visualized their work, they were having huddles once a week. After they visualized their work, they had huddles every day and a long huddle on Fridays where they did lean coffee. They did that while they were saying they didn't need the board. But just getting in and talking about anything made them start to realize that there was information that they weren't getting. So What we can't do is say, I've got my board up and I'm getting my burn down chart or my CFD or whatever metrics that I'm asking for, or I'm doing lean so there automatically I have a respect for people. That's wishful thinking. And wishful thinking, to paraphrase, is not a strategy. We need a complete system where we see what's going on, we get actual calls to action, we know what is planned and why, not just for our team, but for the organization as a whole. So we can use OKRs or whatever we want for that, but we know how our work fits into a bigger picture. And then we know how the implementation of that picture is going. And then we know who, why, and how we are and work together, right? So we actually build the PDSA loop, and we build it intentionally. And we understand that these things aren't soft skills. This is for knowledge work, the thing that keeps the engines running. And if we don't do that, then we are screwed. So I will close this by showing, let's see if you can see it here. You can see, yeah, you can see it here. So in between these two pictures, I'll get a different visual control here for you. So visual controls are most often thought of as Kanbans or things that will exist in an Obeya room. But in my time at Turner, I worked on this project, which is the Coney Island Hospital project. And this is a coat. This coat is a visual control. It gives the team identity. It's not swag. It's not swag. And so this team, when they first moved into the trailer, this is kind of what their board looked like. Within a couple of months, this is what that wall looked like. And you can see it spreading throughout the trailer and around the job site, that different visual controls are coming up because Kanban is not enough. Kanban is not enough. Jira will never be enough. Jira will never show you the things that we've just talked about. Now, you can have a Jira board. That's okay. But understand that this team here in the conference room that's behind this wall has just walls of nothing but visual controls about building this hospital. And you can see here that there's very, very specific daily Kanban that's happening here. Also breaks rules of Kanban, but it's what this team needs. Down here, these little things that you can probably just barely see are little playing card or like baseball cards that they had made for the team. And a few weeks later, this whole wall was filled with these baseball cards, this whole section down here. But this is also another identity thing. It's like, you're here, you belong here, you're a professional, we respect you, we want to keep your machinery running. And so what I will close with is to say, with this project here, which was just an unbelievable project to work on, just a blessing to work on. When COVID hit, this team immediately gathered in the conference room behind this wall and said, okay, we build buildings. How can we possibly become a remote team? And they did it. In less than 24 hours, they came up with a whole plan about how they were still going to get all this information, even in a remote setting. And one of the things that was very important to them is every morning they do their huddle, and then they do calisthenics in their huddle, which to a lot of people might sound like a nightmare. It is like starting every day with a tiny party with these people. And they were distraught that they might lose that. So they kept doing it even remotely, probably drove all of their spouses crazy. Okay, these are the 7 elements of visual management.